G'day fellow trappers, my name is Andy Chartrand and I'm here today to talk to you about pelt handling, and today we're going to be discussing the beaver. The beaver is probably one of the most important animals that we have in the country. It goes back, there's a lot of history that goes with the beaver. It opened up our country. Canada was opened up because of the beaver. The first Europeans who came over here were really looking after their silky pelts and to take back to Europe to make garments with. So they opened up the country with the beaver and looking for their skins. Because there was no regulations back then, the beaver almost became extinct because of over-trapping and over-harvesting. So today there's regulations on different provinces where we can only take so many beaver, and the population today is flourishing. There's beaver all over the place. It's still a well sought after animal that's got a long silky fur, and beautiful garments are made from the beaver. Just to talk a little bit about the beaver, it has different distinctive features on it. It has a big flat tail that it uses for propelling itself in the water. It also uses it to warn other animals about the dangers that might be around. It has a big webbed foot, and it can push a lot of water with its feet. And it also has one toenail here that's pretty interesting because it's a split toenail. And it uses this nail as a comb, so it grooms its fur with this nail. So that's a little distinctive feature with the beaver. Also, one thing that the beaver provides is a lot of food for different animals out in the wild. The beaver will provide food for wolves. Different animals will come in and take small beaver, like otter. Will go right in a beaver house and take beaver. So it supplies food for otter, wolves. Also different things. A lot of times they get trapped in their own, as they're cutting trees will fall down on them. So other animals like marten, fox, they also will feed off the beaver. So as you know, beavers are a very important part of the animal world. Animals need three things to survive. They need food, they need cover, and they also need water. The beaver provides the animals with their water. He'll build up big beaver dams and flood fairly big areas of water. A lot of times that works out really well for the animals out there, but in other instances it works out as being a nuisance for some people, because they do flood our highways. They cause major damage to farmers' fields, so they can create a lot of damage. So because of that, we have to control their populations. So keeping that in mind, we're going to take the animal down and we're going to show you how to properly flesh and skin this animal. Some of the tools that we're going to use now are going to be this here is a tool that we use for sharpening our knives. So this tool here we're going to keep handy. This is our fleshing tool here. We're going to use a fleshing knife, so we've got our pelting knife. We have scissors here if we have to do any work with the scissors. Fur comb. We've got a fur brush over here and a fur comb. So these are really important tools because cleaning the pelt up really well before you start is very important. Pelting is important, but the pelting begins, the fur handling begins in the bush when you catch the animal. So it's really important that we take care of it right from the beginning to the end. We're also going to use this here as a little scraper. So we'll use this here in the pelting part. This is a little knife that I use. It's a hook blade, and I use this for opening up all my animals. So you're going to see how we use this here. And the nice part about this type of tool is that it's retractable for one thing, so it's not as dangerous as a knife, and it also has multiple blades, so as they get dull you can just break them off and you can keep going. So you always have a sharp knife to open up your animals with to get them started. And you can get spare blades. They come in packages like this. So that's really handy to have. The next thing I want to show you is the surgical gloves that we use. And the reason we use surgical gloves is to prevent disease from contacting any disease from the animal that we're skinning. When I'm trapping, I'm using a lot of wire, and we're always cutting ourselves. We get nicks on our fingers, and when we're skinning the animal now, it doesn't take much. It just takes an open cut to mix with the fluids from a diseased animal, and we can end up with that disease. And once we're finished, we make sure that we wash up really well with soap and water and clean ourselves up. So surgical gloves is an important tool for the trapper to be using at all times. Okay, so right now we're going to be skinning a beaver. So before we start skinning the beaver, this is a real nice extra large beaver. We're going to put on our gloves. So make sure that you use surgical gloves or latex gloves, whatever type that is good for you. Some people can't wear latex, so they have to wear latex-free gloves. But make sure you put something on your hands. It'll just protect you from any disease that you might pick up from these animals that you're skinning. The first thing we're going to do now, before we start skinning our beavers, we're going to use a stone fur comb, and I'm going to start brushing it out. Just like any other animal that I skin, make sure that the fur is dry. You don't want it to be wet. So give it a good brushing. This is a real nice prime beaver. So we're going to just take it like this here, turn it around, and brush it up. Now again, it's really important that how you handle the pelt and the way you're going to take it out of the trap in the field. That's going to make or break your animal, because most of the time our beavers are caught around here. If I take this out and the animal is frozen, I pull the trap out of the water, the animal is frozen, and I try and take that trap off, and I let it freeze before I take it off, what's going to happen is all these long guard hairs here will break off, and you're going to end up with a bald spot right up in here, and it's not going to look nice. It's not the most crucial area right here, because this is the piece of fur that they're looking at, like from here to here and here to here. So if you have a little bit of damage up here, it's not going to be a crucial area. But sometimes the trap catches them back here. Now if you do that here, that will be crucial, and that's going to do some damage to the pelt. So try and be careful how you handle. Never carry the animal out by the trap as well, because sometimes the trap will be rubbing, and as you're coming out, and you're going to end up rubbing a hole in it. So you're best to take the trap off right away if you can, but if it's frozen on the animal, bring the animal back, and we'll let it dry up or thaw out a bit, and then we can take it off. A lot of times you'll see them there bleeding from the nose, so just try and keep your work area clean as much as you can. So we've got this one all brushed out, so now we're going to, first thing I do is we're going to turn them around here. After you've brushed them out, the next step is to remove the feet. So I take the front foot here, and just below the joint, I'm going to cut in with my knife and come right around. And then we're going to just give it a twist, and then take the foot off. We're going to do that to all four. I just got a pail here that I keep with me, and I just throw all these parts in the pail. So do the same thing on the other foot now. Some people like to leave the leg on. It gives them a handle to carry the beaver out after. Makes it a little more difficult to take the leg off, or the skin out from the leg, but you can leave them on if you want. I just find it easier to take them off. The back leg, you're going to come in just behind the tendon here, cut into the tendon, and come straight around here. Now one thing I don't do is I don't hang my beaver up when I'm drying them. When I'm drying the fur, I try and, you can hang them up for a day, but then to let them dry, then lay them flat. And the reason why I do that, you don't want all the blood running to one part of the body. So if they're laying flat, the blood is spread out more in the body. Take the back leg now, hold it like this, and I take this here and I'm pulling down and I'm pushing up. And a little twist, and that breaks that knuckle. And then I can get in here and remove the back foot. Then do the same thing with the other side. So you just cut around here. So push up and break it off. And cut that off. So now we have the four legs off. So now we're going to make our first cut. And to make your first cut, you want to come right down the center of the beaver. So beaver is skinned what we call open. It's not skinned case like we do with lynx and fox. They're skinned case. We started here and we kind of go inside out. A beaver is like a bear. You're gonna start from the chin and cut down. But on a bear, we would leave the chin and that intact because it's going in for taxidermy. So beaver though, we're going to go from the chin right down to the tip of the tail. So the first thing I'm going to do is I draw a straight line. So I'm going to come here and just with your knife, you can draw that straight line right up to the chin. So now I see my line that I want to cut on. So now I come back here with my hook blade. You can use a pelting knife if you want, use whatever kind of knife you're used to. I got used to this one, so I just hook in here and come down. You got to be careful now not to go too deep. I don't want to go too deep and gut them. So I'm just going to follow that straight line that I have. Take your time here. You don't have to go too deep because you don't want to. Right here, there's not a lot of skin between the skin and the stomach, so you don't want to gut them open. If you do, you can pack it with paper towels, and that'll stop the fluids from getting over everything. Now you keep coming down. I don't cut too deep around here either because the casters are in here and I don't want to cut my casters because I want to take them out after. But you can cut straight to the vent or you can go around the vent, whichever way. I go straight to it, then I get on the other side and I cut straight down to the center of the tail. Now when I get down to here, I'm going to start here and just come right around the tail and hook on to the other side and come around like that. Now we've got, basically, we're cut right around the tail. Alright, so then we're done with this tool. And now we're going to get our beaver skinning knife. So now what I do is, you can put these animals on a trough, you can build a trough. They're going to sit in there a little bit better. Some people build a trough with screening on it. The ones that screen on it, the advantage of that is the beaver's off the board. So if you cut into it, if it's bleeding from the legs or that, the blood's not getting on the fur. It's going to stay inside the screen and the blood will flow through the screen. The other thing that the screening does is it keeps the dirt off of the pelt. Because you're going to see at the end of when you're finished skinning with a screen that a lot of the dirt will be on your board. That's another important thing too, is the board you're using to skin on. Make sure it's not one of your boards that you use to board the beaver on. You don't want to get all this fat and grease and blood on the board and then put the beaver on and board it. So I always have a board that I do all my skinning on. I have another board that I put the pelt on and we're going to board it. We'll show you that later. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open this here up. So there's different ways of skinning the beaver. You can use your skinning knife and you can skin all the way down. Some guys like to just open this here up and they'll start to pull on it. You can do that as well if you like. There's clean skinning and there's what we call rough skinning. I'm going to rough skin this beaver because we're going to show you how to flesh it on the beam after. So as I'm skinning this here, I'm not worried too much about if I'm leaving lots of fat on or muscle. it doesn't really matter, because the more that's on there, the better actually for taking off the when I'm going to be fleshing it. But if I was clean skinning, this is how you would do it. You want to get right up here, and you would want to remove all this fat. I used to clean skin when I first started trapping beaver, and that, so you can see I'm skinning right down to the skin. But what I found is I didn't have time to do that. I'd be out trapping, catching beaver, and when I get back to my camp, I'd be too tired at night to start clean skinning each beaver, because it takes a little bit longer. I can rough skin it a lot quicker, and then I can wrap them up and put them in the freezer, the skins, and flesh them later. We're not too worried about how much fat or muscle we're going to leave on it. What you want to remember to do, though, is don't work yourself into a pocket. So I try and keep going back and forth. I can keep going down here and work my way down, but then I'm going to be into a pocket, and that's how you're going to end up cutting into the skin. So take your time, come down this way here, open it up. When I get here now, this here membrane here, I separated. I want to cut into that membrane. I'm leaving a membrane and fat. I don't do it up here because I would be into the stomach. But right here, this is the membrane here that I cut into it. And then there is another layer of meat under that. We're going to try and get the leg out here. So we're working towards the leg. This is the rear leg. You can use a block of wood here and slip it underneath here, and that'll hold it up for you. That's one way you can do it. Just get some firewood out. What I'm trying to do here is I'm going to push this bone out, and I'm almost there. So you can see right here, very close to opening it up. And then once you get to here, you can just a little cut there, and that splits off, and then we've got the back leg off. Now the front leg is up back here. We gotta cut into this fat here, and it's starting to come up. So now what I'm doing is I'm pushing up on this here part of the bone here, and I'm trying to push it through. So I don't want to cut into the skin, but I'm cutting right around it, and just keep coming around, and you're going to see that bone will come right through. Then I can put my finger in where the leg hole was and just follow the leg now back out, and that'll come up like that. I want to get about half of the beaver off on this side, and then we're going to turn it around. We're going to go work on the other side. So keep coming around. And now I got to move it up a bit. And we're going to get this back leg out. So you can see how we're trying to stay as even as we can going across, and that's going to help you do a good job on your beaver. So just take your time with it. I'm coming up into the back of the shoulder here now. Some trappers will start at the head and work their way down. I finish at the head. Once I'm down halfway at the tail here in the middle of the tail, that's as far as I'll go on this side, and then we'll start working it off on the other side. So I'm just about halfway through here. So I don't want to go down any further. So we're about halfway at the shoulders too. So now we're just going to flip this hide back up in here, and I'm going to turn the beaver around. So we're just going to give him a bit of a flip here, and come back on this side. And now we start doing the same thing on this side. So I start at the chin here and open them up. We're going to work this back leg out. So again, it's just taking the bone here and basically pushing it in. And as I'm doing that, I'm cutting around in this area here, and that's going to expose that bone. Once the bone is exposed, it'll pop through like so. And then you can get your finger inside here and start working it off. And that's basically got the leg out. Okay, so we're going to start bringing this here down a bit more. We got to get the front leg out. So same thing, you can see the knuckle here and the fur. So push in on the knuckle. So that gives you an idea where that skin is. And as you push in on it, and just a couple little cuts here, and that'll expose it. It'll pop through. There it is. And once you get it through, you can get your finger in here, and now you're just following the back side of the leg and opening it up. And now you got both legs out. So we're going to use our little block of wood here. We're going to set that up on our block of wood and keep working it down. The other thing you can do is you can take a string here, you can tie a string and put a nail in your board and tie the leg over to the string. That'll hold the legs out if you want to do it that way. That's just another way that some trappers do it to keep the legs from flopping around. Or you can, like I say, you can build yourself a trough to work it on. And then if you have the trough, the animal kind of stays up like this here. You don't need the block of wood. The other thing you're doing when you're skinning is I use my hands a lot. As I'm underneath here, my knuckles, I'm running my knife just along the edge of my knuckle, so I know that if I cut into my knuckle, I'm going to cut the skin. So I know with my knuckles there, I'm not going to cut into the skin. So that's another little trick you can use while you're skinning. Once you get it up to here, there's different things you can do. So I'll show you one way here. We'll just flip this, we'll move this out of here now. We'll flip this straight over, and we'll just get the tail out. Because we're so close to the center here, and remember we already went through on the other side, so you can see it's coming apart here. Once I get it up to about here, you can just pull this off. This will just pull right off. You can put your fingers inside the leg holes and just holding it by the tail, and that'll come right up. So there's a stretch here on the back here that you can just pull off. You don't have to skin it off with the knife. So now what we're going to do is we're going to, once we have it this way, I just let it hang over the table, and now we're going to start skinning out the head. I use a different knife here for around the head than my regular knife. If you don't have all these knives, you don't worry about it. You can use your other knife too. You just got to keep it sharp. Now we're coming up to an ear here, and there's two ways you can do the ear. I'm going to show you one way. One way is to cut into the skin when we get up to the ear here. So it's right here. There's a big chunk of fat in it. I got two different ways of doing it. I can cut this off right here now. So I'd rather leave it on because I want to show you different ways of doing it on the board. But one way is to cut it off right here. So you could cut that big chunk out. But we're going to leave it on for now. So we just cut the ear off right close to the skull. And then I'll show you different ways of doing it with scissors and on the beam. So then again on this side here, this is the ear, so cut close to the skull. You can see the big chunk of fat's in here, but you'll see that after. Keep coming around now. You almost have the skin off. You're going to see the eye is going to be exposed very shortly. So, and the bottom lip here. So here's the eye right here. So cut close to the skull. You don't want to make a big hole in the eye. So you can see I just left the eyelid on. And keep coming around. Work the other side off now. And we're going to get the other eyelid out. So cut towards the skull. I'm pushing straight down basically and cutting into the skull. And now we've exposed the other eye. And then just keep cutting out towards the nose. Some guys will cut the lips off right now. I leave them on for now. We're going to take them off after because we don't want to leave the lips on, the lips and the whiskers. But I just keep coming back and forth and until I get to the end of the cartilage. Once I get to the end of the cartilage, cut the nose off. It doesn't matter if you, so there's your beaver hide all taken off. And then we have our beaver carcass here. Now just before we throw this out, there's a couple things we're going to do to it. One thing is a lot of people like to eat beaver, so the beaver meat is really good, so we're going to show you what to check for. But another important part of the beaver is the beaver casters. I'm going to push my fingers down in here, and the casters, I can feel them. I don't want to cut into them, so I just want to cut this area here. And now we've exposed them. You can see them here. This is the casters coming out here now, this part here. So we just work our fingers in here. Again, with these gloves, it's a little bit tougher. Now we can see that this is a male. You can't see that when we're just looking at it when it was all covered up. It's hard to tell a male from a female, but once you open it up, you'll expose the penis. So just keep working these casters out. If you're having a hard time with the gloves, you can take a paper towel here and you'll see how it just peels right off the meat. So I always take the caster now, and I'm going to just get some of this membrane off of it. It just cleans it up. And then I take the caster and run it underneath the penis area, so that the two of them now, if I hold it like this here and I start pulling nice and steady pull, and it's just going to pull right out. But this is your casters right here, and this is the stuff inside it that's really valuable. So we try and keep that. You don't want to cut any of the sac at all. So try and keep it intact. You can pull this membrane here off. That just cleans it up. Once you're done with the caster, what I do is I just we'll put a nail on the board once we boarded the beaver, and I hang the caster up on the board for about a day. After a day of drying on the board, I'll take it out and I'll put it in an ice cream pail or any kind of plastic pail and put it in my freezer. I keep all the casters until the price of casters goes up. When the price of casters goes up, check with the auction houses. Once you see the price of casters going up, then take them out of the freezer. Then you're going to have to sit them on a screen mesh or something and let them dry for another day, because to get the moisture out from the freezer. Once they're dry, put them in a paper bag. Never throw these in with your fur in the fur bag, because you're going to get all the oils and that off the casters on your fur. Put them in a paper bag or a cardboard box, and then ship them that way. You can ship them in. You can put that cardboard box in with your fur, but don't just throw the casters in. And never put them in plastic, because they'll rot before they get to the auction house. So that's your casters. This makes great lure also for trapping lynx and different animals. So if you want, you can use this for lure. It's also a great lure for trapping other beaver. You can make your own lure. You can take this out and mulch it down. There's also an oil gland here that you can remove if you're going to make your own lure. We'll just expose this oil gland here, and I'll show you what it is. And we'll cut into it. And you can see I cut into it, and these oils here this is the gland right in here. So you can cut into it and squeeze all this oil out, and that's the oil you would mix with your caster. and you can make a lure with it, and that lure works good for lynx and different animals. Okay, so remember, beaver is a great bait out in the wild. When you're trapping, a lot of trappers use beaver as their #1 bait. We use it for everything: marten, lynx, fox, wolf. It's a great bait to use. It's also good to eat, and if you're going to eat it though, make sure that you check the liver. So come down here, give it a cut right across here, and you're going to expose the liver. So the liver is right in here, so pull the liver out and make sure you check that liver, and you're going to look for spots. If you see blue spots or white spots on the liver, then I'd be kind of leery. I wouldn't eat that meat. It might be disease, but this animal here has a nice red liver. You can even eat the liver. If you like liver, you can eat that. The liver is also really good for using for your marten. I use a running pole on my marten boxes. My marten boxes are in the tree up high, so I'll rub beaver liver on my running pole at the ground level, and what that does is it gets the animal to come out of it from under the snow when it smells that meat, and then run up the pole. So you can use the liver for that as well. So if you're going to keep it, then you would cut off all the meat and go through your gutting procedures, but we're not going to keep it, so we're just going to put it back in the pail here. Just tuck the tail in here, and then that's ready to take out to the trap line. Okay, so now we're going to just show you another tool that we use. This is the fleshing beam, and we're going to show you how to flesh the beaver on this later on. But it's made out of a chunk of hardwood, and it's molded into this shape. And on the other side here we have a bracket, and the bracket is just comes up, and it's an adjustable bracket. So that slips in. You can slip it into any notch. You want it higher or lower. For myself, I like it at the first notch there, and then once you got it into that bracket, you can set it down here, and it's at the right height for me. So it comes up to right about my belly button. I can put my hide on the beam now, and I use my draw knife and I push down. As I'm pushing in with my stomach. So make sure that the end of the beam is anchored against a wall, because as you're pushing, it's going to start sliding on you, and you don't want it to be sliding. So put the beam on the end of the wall, and that'll help you flesh your whatever pelt you have on it. Okay, so now we're going to flesh the beaver. So we have our fleshing beam here. So we're going to take our beaver hide, and we're going to set it down on top here like this. And what I use is this is a Zeph fleshing knife. It's got a dull side on it. It also has a sharp side on it. For beaver, we're going to use mostly the sharp side. And what I do is I start right up at the ear. So remember, when I was skinning it, I was talking about the big chunk of fat that's in the ear. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove one with the Zeph knife, and the other one we're going to do on the board after with the scissors. So you can see here I'm cutting in with the knife, and look at that big chunk of fat that come off there. So right there, there's some cartilage, but there's a big chunk of fat. If you leave that on, that's going to ruin a whole bunch of pelts at the auction house, or it can, because that fat's it's gonna drip right through a bunch of other hides, because they pile them up one on top of the other. So you got to make sure you get that out. The best way is to remove the ear altogether, and we're going to take the ear right off after. So I'll show you how to do that later on. But right now, what we're going to do, we want to take all this meat and fat has to come off. So what I do is I start just behind the ears and with the sharp side, and I'm working like this here. Don't push straight down. You want to work a bit on an angle and just take off a little bit at a time. Now this is sliding because this is slippery here. So what you can do, you can just use a paper towel or something and hook that up in here. This is a big beaver. There's different beams you can get too. Some beams have, they're a little wider that we use for beaver. I've got a big round beam, but these beams here will work as well. So we're just going to work this hide down, or the fat, and I'm not putting a lot of pressure on here. I'm just removing that. And the other thing I don't want to do is I don't want to start working way down here. So just take off don't work your way to the edges either. I'm not gonna start coming up in here and working on the edge. I'm just working a nice piece down the middle. So keep pulling it back to you and put this on and keep working it down. You can see it's the skin kind of tends to curl up in here, so normally if you're gonna put a hole in it, it's gonna be on the edge here. That's where we see a lot of trappers will put holes in their skin. But you can see there that peels off pretty good. Now, sawdust is a nice tool to use because we use it on our board. It just picks up all that grease, and we want to keep our work area clean. So even if your sawdust gets on the pelt itself, it doesn't matter because it actually helps to remove some of the fat. So you can put sawdust right on the pelt if you wanted to. So you can see we started up here and we came right down the middle. Now we're going to turn it on the side, and we're going to start working from the side here. So same thing, I keep this here little rag here, and now I'm going to just work a little section off at a time. And like I say, there's different ways that you can do this. You can use your board that you're going to board them on. You can flesh it with your fleshing knife if you don't have the big Zeph knife like this. Now you can see the layer of fat underneath, and when I'm pushing here, it's just going to roll that fat right off on the sides here. So look how nice that comes off. And you'll see after we can clean up the edges on this there with the knife and the beam. There's lots you can do with the knife and the beam. A little bit of sawdust here and just clean that up. Now we're coming up to the head. Because here's the ear and the front leg hole. The eyes over here. This is the other spot that's really tough to get out. So we're just going to use the sharp side of the knife and work that off. What you're going to have to be careful with is up in here is the, well, this was a male, so the tits aren't as pronounced on the male as it is on the female. But on the female, they'd be a little more pronounced. And when you're pushing, you'd have to be careful there because you could rip into them. I'm going to go easy here because I want to show you right here. Right here is where that tit is. So we're just going to roll it down a bit more. And what I do is I just use my sharp part of the knife now and just cut it off so that I don't make a big hole here. And then you can run the rest of this chunk of fat off. We'll get this part off here. Just under here there's that other tit. I'll just pull that off. There you go. And there it is right there. So you can see where the other tit was. So you got one here and one here. And then we'll just clean up the edge here. So we're going to go back to the back end of the beaver. And we're going to get this last chunk off here. This is always tougher too. The sides, the flanks here will pull off, and around the back leg here, you see how the fat pulls off. It comes off fairly nice here, but when we get down to this part right here in the back end here, you have to use the sharp knife, the sharp end of the knife to get this off. So I just keep slowly taking it off in layers. And do it in layers because if you try and take off too much, it's going to end up bubbling up on you. The skin twists and you end up cutting through it. And I'm just using the dull side now and pushing. So with the dull side, you can push a lot of that off. Okay, I'm not worried about all this stuff here around here. Even on the edges here, we can trim this up after. So we got that end done. So now we got half a beaver done. So we're going to work on the other side now. But just one thing I neglected to mention here is on our knife here we have on the sharp side we have the dull side and this is the sharp side. One side is beveled and on the other side is flat. So you want to make sure when I'm skinning I'm using the bevel side is up to me as I'm coming down. Don't put it where the bevel side is on the skin now and the flat side's up. You'll have more chance of cutting into the hide. So keep the bevel side towards me. Never work over onto the edges here because then you're going to cut into it. Try and stay on the flat side of your beam. We're coming up to the head again. So this is a real tough area up in here. Like I say, lots of trappers have trouble with it. We already took that big chunk of fat off of this here, so we don't have to worry about that right now. So I'll keep working this here down. And here's the eyes, the ears, and this is the lips, and these are the bottom lip. We're going to cut that off after. So I'm not too concerned with that right now. This here, it'll start to roll on this side, but on this side of it, it's still pretty tough. So let's get back here and we'll roll this down a bit, and that'll help. So see here where the tip was again, that came off pretty good. Didn't make a big hole there. So you can use your sharp side just to cut that off. And now we're pushing over this is the leg here. We're pushing over it and the fat will come right off the leg. So you can see that's sliding right off. And get that off of there. And now we just got to clean up around the front leg here. So we're using the sharp side again. And then pull down. And that should pick that up. Clean that off. There you go. I'm not worried about up in here. We're going to clean that up after. So, and the same thing around the leg here. Get the big chunk off, but we're going to back here. Here's where the other tit is right here. So we're just going to use the sharp side, cut into it, and then pull it off. That way there you didn't make a big hole here. So now we're going to come back to the center here. And we're going to work this off. Keep coming down. Now that should roll. Putting quite a bit of pressure with the dull knife, but I'm keeping it at a 90-degree angle. I'm not pushing like this. I'm pushing straight at a 90 with it. And what I've noticed with this hide, which is unusual for a big beaver, that he doesn't have a lot of scars on him. A lot of big beaver will be scarred up because they've been fighting with other beaver because they are territorial. It looks like there's a little bit of a clip right here. It's an old scar. You got to watch these, but usually on bigger beaver you're going to see a lot more of this, and this one here just didn't have it. So must have been a friendly beaver. Didn't fight a lot. If there is a lot of scars on them, when you're pushing down hard like this here, you could clip those scars, so you got to be careful. If you notice lots of scars, be careful on your when you're pushing. Okay, so we're just going to push this here off of the back leg here, and then we've pretty much got it fleshed. Just a little bit of cleaning up to do on the edges. Yeah, so we have a little bit more work to do around the head here. I don't want to, I could do the same thing I did with this here with the knife, but I want to leave this on and show you how to take it off with the scissors. And basically the same thing on the edge here. I can take this here off with the draw knife, or you can work it off with the scissors too later on. So when I get into here, I mean, this should pull off into the whiskers, and don't worry if you, even if you pull the whisker right off, this is the bottom lip. We're going to take that off anyway after, so it's not going to really matter. So it's just a matter of cleaning this here up a bit. I think we pretty much have it. There is lots here, but we're going to clean all that up with the scissors. So that's basically beaming the beaver. We'll talk more about the how we're going to stretch the beaver now on a board, and we're going to also make a stretcher board for it. So that's our next step. So now we have the beaver skinned and fleshed, so now we have to board our beaver. So in order to board our beaver, we have to make our beaver board. So we're going to make our lines that we're going to put on the beaver board. In order to do that, we have a pattern here that we can use. So the pattern is all these lines here. You can take this pattern and cut it out. And you can cut it out and put the pattern on a bristle board or a cardboard, and it'll be a little more permanent for you. Or if you just, because you will probably be making more than one board. Or you can just use the paper and make one board if that's all you're doing for now. There's lots of information on this here, and we'll talk about that a little later when we get the board up on all the different sizes. So what we did is we cut each one of these here patterns out. So we have those over here ready to go. So the first thing we have to do is find our center. So on one sheet of plywood, a 4x8 sheet of plywood, you can make 3 beaver boards. They're cut 32 inches in length, so 32, and by 48. This is the width of your sheet of plywood to start off with. So 32 by 48 will give you 3 beaver boards. So the first thing we're going to do now is we're going to measure for the center. So we know the center is 16, and we'll put a little mark at 16, and down here at 16, and then we're going to measure the width, and we know half 48 is 24, so we put a little mark at 24, and there you go, 24. And then what we're going to do now, and that's just getting our center. We're going to get a straight edge here and put it on the line. And then we're just going to draw a line across. Use a pencil for this. And then the same thing here, we've got the center. So find the center down here, my mark. And I'm going to draw my center line onto here. And then do the same thing to the bottom part of it. So we got our center, hold it straight. And there's our center. So now we have the center marked out on our board. So we're going to take the first piece here, and we're going to use a red marker. Now you're going to want to have your pattern so it's nice and even on your line. So your line this way and this way. And so holding the paper down, you're just going to trace along the edge of the paper. And then you're going to just take your pattern and flip it. And same thing, you're going to hold it down right at the nice and even on this line and the edge of the paper on this line, and we have our paper here to mark our line now on this way. So just keep coming around. So then once you get to here now you just flip your paper this way. And we'll just flip it one more time. And now we're at the last part of our oval shape. So then we just draw it out one more time. So there's basically your smallest beaver. I mean, you could get them sometimes they're smaller. You have to go inside the line, and a lot of times they're too round. They could be in a triangle shape. There's all different shapes that come in. It's good to keep everything uniform, and this size here and this shape here, it should be an oval shaped beaver, because a beaver isn't made round. They're made long and stubby, so when you open them up, they're oval shape. So this is the proper size. Okay, so now we've got our second pattern here we're going to put down. So same thing, they were all cut out, And now we're just going to set that down here, and we're going to trace it out now. And we're using a different color, and that's really important. If you want to follow your lines when you're tacking your beaver on the boards, it could get confusing if all your lines are the same color. So if you use different colors, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to follow that line. And that just joins up with that one, and there we go. Now we've got 2 of the patterns done. So now we're going to go to the third one. When we do the third one, again, I'm going to change colors. So on this one here now, we're going to use a blue marker. So line it up again. Nice and center. And then draw your next line. Okay, so now we have all the lines on our board. We finished up with the pattern. The last thing we did here was we put the different sizes of beaver on here. There's also a little number here that you could put it on here, but that's just a code for the auction house. So when you get your check back, it tells you what size of beaver that you had in the sale. So I like to put these numbers on here, and I'll show you why in a minute when we board the beaver. So now we're going to get the beaver hide, the skin that the beaver that we skinned, and we're going to prepare it to board it. Okay, so now we're going to just trim up. We talked earlier about, I took this ear off here with the big draw knife, and I said we'd do this here and clean up around this area here around the head. I want to show you how to do it with the scissors as well. You can still clean up some of this stuff here. And it's quite easily done with the scissors, so you can see how that just picks that up. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing up on the skin. I'm just got my finger underneath here, so I'm cutting where my finger is. So I know I'm not going to cut right through because I'll cut my finger. So just clean this here up. Now the ears itself, I'm going to cut them right off. I never seen a beaver coat made out of beaver ears, so we don't need the ears on. The graders at the auction house like to see the ears taken out. That way there they know that this big chunk of fat that's in here, and we're going to take this one out now with the scissors. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cut in quite deep to get that big chunk of fat out. So you can see that's a pretty big chunk of fat that has to come out of here. Don't leave that on. And then we'll just trim up with the rest with the scissors. I'm going to push the ear right out. So you can take the ear now and push it right out. So there's the ear. And I cut the ear right off. You don't need the ear in there. So take the ears right out. So do the same thing with the other side. Probably got a little bit too much cartilage here, so we'll just take some more cartilage off. That'll allow for the ear to come through. And then once that comes through, we'll just cut that off as well. So there's the 2 ears taken out. And now we're just going to clean up around the head. So like I said earlier, you can do this with the draw knife, or you can wait and do it later on with the scissors. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to get a paper towel here and put all this on a paper towel. That's to keep my board clean, because the fur is going to be sitting on this side of the board, so we want to keep it fairly clean. Now down in here, I'm getting down to the lips. Don't worry about this area in here. You can see there's lots of like gristle and whatnot in here. We're going to cut this off right here after. So all this stuff here along the edge here, we don't have to worry about it because we're going to cut that off. The buyer and the grader doesn't want to see that, and I'll show you why he doesn't want that on after. You can just clean up all that fat that's around the edge. The scissors do a real nice job here. Don't worry if you cut into the skin here, because you could actually pick this right up here and we can cut it off like that, because we're going to sew the legs up after and you won't even see if you nicked it or something. Okay, so now we'll go to the back leg here. And the same thing, I just go right around the edge. And right down here on the edge here, we've got a little bit of trimming to do. A little chunk of fat there and little pieces on the end. So now we're at the other back leg. That's looking pretty good. And then we're coming up to the next leg here. There's a big chunk of fat right here that we missed with the other knife, so now's the time to pick it up. We pretty much have her cleaned up where we're ready to start nailing it on the board. We'll just move this out of the way, and we're going to start by sizing your beaver. So before I do that, I'm going to show you one important thing here. Is when the beaver is all dried out, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to on this, it'll be a dry piece of fur, skin. You're going to want to brush it out after when it comes off the board, because this will take about 3 to 4 days to dry it. So take your brush after it comes off the board and brush it. And then when it gets down to the auction house, the auctioneer, not the auctioneer, the grader, when the grader is looking at this pelt, a beaver primes up from the flanks to the back. The last place for the beaver to prime up is right in this area here. So priming means that the under fur is heavy, and the guard hair, this long hair that you see here, is nice and long and silky. So a grader, when he's grading the beaver, he's going to put his hand here and he's going to push on the beaver here. You can feel it's heavy here, and he's going to push towards the back of the ears. If it's consistent, then your beaver is nice and primed up. So that's what a grader is looking for. He's feeling for consistency with the under fur and also the length of your guard hairs. So that's why you don't want to have no damage done to your guard hairs and with the traps, and you want to have a good consistent under fur. So that's what he does. So because this is the last area to prime up, that'll make sense now the way we're going to nail it, how we do it. So to find out what size it is, I just take the beaver and fold it naturally. So just fold it in half naturally. And here's the tail, here's the nose. I pick it up. I pick it up here by the nose. And now we've got half of it. And just as it's nice and natural, drop it onto the board. And I can see that this one here comes to the black line on the nose at the black line here, the tail is almost at the black line here. That's basically your size. You don't want to overstretch a beaver, you don't want to understretch a beaver. So there are times that we will overstretch it, and I'll tell you when to do that. If you had a lot of scars on it and there was lots of holes in the pelt, it's not a nice beaver, then you can stretch it tight. That's going to help you. You'll get a few extra dollars if you do that. Because you're going to get more money for a big piece of beaver skin that's not nice than you will for a small piece of beaver skin that's not nice. So stretch it tight. But if you have a good beaver like this one here, it's a good prime beaver, you don't want to overstretch it. You want to leave it heavy. So we know that it's going to come up to that line, so we're going to get our nails now and our hammer. The nails you want to use here are a thin nail, but it's not your normal common nail. It's a very thin stem nail, but it has a really wide head, and that's going to make it nice when you pull the nails out. The thin nail stem now makes a smaller hole in your board, so your boards are going to last a lot longer if you have these small nails. So now our first nail that we're going to put into the beaver is going to go in just in between the two eyes, but above, just below the nose. Remember what I said, we're going to be cutting this area here off and the lips here. So we don't want to nail it up here. We're going to nail it down below that. So the first nail goes right here. Line up the center of the beaver, and I want to get it onto my black line. And that's all you do, is just tack one nail on there. And now we're going to go to the bottom end of the beaver here. So I'm going to just shake the beaver up like this here, and that's just to get it natural, so that the center of the beaver now will line up with this this black line here. We'll tack it on. And then we're going to go over here and do the same thing on this side. So take the center and bring it over to here. I can tell right now that this is going to be too tight of a stretch for this beaver. So we're going to have to bring it in. I don't want to stretch this beaver that big. I mean, this size here, this is how they measure the beaver at the auction house. They're going to measure from this, where this nail is. They're not going to measure from the end of the nose, because they're going to measure from where I put the nail in down to here. And then they're going to hold their finger here, take the measurement from here over to here. That measures 68 inches. So if I look up here, this would measure 65 to 68. This is my double extra large to triple extra large. This is one of the biggest beavers that you're going to get. After this size here, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you have a beaver that goes over this line, it doesn't matter. It's still going to be a triple extra large beaver. So that's how we do the measuring. So because I find it's too much, too tight of a stretch, we're gonna bring it in. Okay, so we just removed our nail. Now I'm gonna back it off, and I'm gonna come in between. So the lines, like I said earlier, are a guide. I don't want to come right back to this. I think it'll be too loose. So we're gonna come back halfway in the block, and I think that'll be a better stretch. It'll still be nice, and we'll find out what size of beaver we're going to have in a second here. So if I measure this now, this will give me the size of my beaver pelt when it gets down to the auction house. So 37 there. So you see we're at 65 and a half. So 65 and a half is still a double extra large to a triple extra large. But by the time that it gets down to the auction house, it's going to shrink a bit. It'll probably be, more realistically, it'll be an extra large beaver. It won't be a triple extra large. So what I do now is I take my brush, and I'm going to brush away the edge here. And just want to see a nice, fine, defined edge. So get the fur away from the skin. If I see that there's some cleaning up that has to be done, I missed a little bit of, like right here, missed a little bit of fat, I can use this scraper here, and we can come right around the edge actually. We'll do that. So just come right around the edge. My next nails are going to go in between, so I take the distance between here and here, about halfway, tack a nail in. I know I'm halfway between the black and the red, so come halfway, tack it down. And now we're going to do the same thing over here. Go halfway between the black and the red, tack it down. And just go one nail in between each of the other ones down. Once we get to this stage, we're going to start boarding it up and coming up closer to the, so I used my hammer as a guide, so nail should be about the width of your hammer apart. So bring this over and tack down. What I'm trying to do here is work this fur in, and remember the last part of the animal to prime up is up here, so I'm bringing all this up here and around to get up to here, so that I'm pushing more fur up and behind the net by starting down here and tacking it. You can take your board as well, and you can turn it around so that you're not leaning around it. If you're over it, it makes it a little easier on your back again. And this is a better way of doing it. On my beaver boards at home, I can't do this because they're in a frame, but I just walk around my table as I'm nailing it. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Zeph knife now. I'm just going to clean up anything that's loose. Uh-oh. What you have to really watch now is that on this knife here, is as I'm pulling, I'm not doing this because I'll cut it. So you got to pull straight to you. You can see there are little chunks of fat are going to get cleaned up now. This is just fine-tuning your artwork if you want. You're cleaning it up, so we got rid of all that. And we're going to put a bit of snow in on the felt. So take some snow and put it all over. This is just going to really clean it up nice. It's been over 5 minutes here, so we're just going to pick up the snow here and get it off the hide now. So you can see all the blood that the snow picked up. So that's just cleaning it up. Just getting going that extra mile to make your product a lot nicer. Then you're going to take some paper towels and dry it up. You don't want to leave it wet. And that's basically it. So I'm going to get my needle and thread now, and then we're going to sew up these holes here on the legs. Okay, so we're going to get our thread here. We got a roll of thread here, and we have some needles here. So we're just going to open this up and take out our needle. This is another thing, just like the scissors. Don't go into your wife's sewing kit and pull out her scissors and her needle and thread. You're going to have a difficult time doing it. Okay, so we're using a Glover needle here, and a Glover needle has 3 sharp edges on the end. Unlike just a regular sewing needle that's just rounded to a point, this has 3 sharp edges. And this is the type of needle you're going to need to sew your fur. Okay, so now we have this thread that's a wax thread, and it's really tough, and it's wax, so that it's going to go into the skin and slide through a lot easier. So we're going to take a piece of this here, and we're going to run it through in our needle, the eye of the needle. So we can take our thread now. A little trick here to get your thread to thread it through the needle. Cut your thread on an angle. Don't cut square 90 degrees to it. Cut it on an angle with your scissors. So what I actually did was make a point on my thread. And now, even without my glasses on, I don't see all that well. I can, makes it a little easier for me to get this threaded into my needle here. So what we're going to do, well, we can actually pull out a length that we're going to need and cut it off. And then we don't have to drag the whole roll around with us. Okay, so we don't need all this here. This is a big chunk of fur here. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to cut into this and cut around the edge, because there was quite a bit there. So we'll take that off, and now we're going to sew what's left here. So to sew it, you're going to take your thread, your needle, just on the edge of where I made that cut. Now I'm going to push in and push out. I didn't go right through. I'm not going right through the skin. I'm just going into the skin and back out. So we're going to do that. We're going to keep going all the way around the edge, going in and out of the skin without pushing it right through. But I try and stay as close to the edge as I can. And it's just going to make a nice stitch, and it's going to close up the hole real nice. So now what I do is I just pull the thread right through. So we got lots here to work with. So we're going to pull it all right through quite a bit here. And now I'm just going to tie this up. Okay, so before we tighten it up, we're just going to take a nail here, and we're going to push the hair back in and get it tucked inside, so that now there's no hair on the outside of the skin. Everything's on the inside. I'll just get a little bit better here. There we go. And then when we close it up, you can see now we don't see no hair. It does a really nice job, and we're just going to put a couple knots in here. That's all you need, and then just snip that off right about there. So we're going to do the same thing now for the other front leg. We're just going to cut off some of this here front leg, because there's a lot more material here than what we really need. Just Don't need all that. It'll just, if you leave it on, it'll just make a little bit of a bump there, that's all. So again, just sewing in and out. And if you have the right needle, it's very easy to push this through. These needles do get dull. You might have to sharpen them. If you can't sharpen them, you can buy a new one. They're not too expensive. And I never pull it back out through the eye of the needle. I just run my thread, pull my thread all the way to the other end and tie so that it's ready to go on the next leg. And I will tie it up. And then take the scissors and snip it off there. And now we're going to move to a back leg. So we'll just swing the board around here. Keep going around with your needle. And that's it for the leg holes. That's it. Okay, so now we're coming into the final stage, so we're just going to lift. Make sure you do this though, because this is really important. You don't want to leave the skin right down flat on the board. You want to pull it up over the up the nails, and I bring it up right to the almost to the tip of the nail head. And what you want, the reason why I'm doing this is because you want air. You want air to get in underneath it. So we've got a little bit of water here from the snow that's dripping down on it. We'll just wipe that up. It'll just help dry it quicker. Okay, so we've got it all picked up. Now I'm going to take my brush, and I'm going to brush the fur away from the edge of the skin. That just defines it. What's happening too is, because you see I've got it pulled right up tight. If I leave it like this, the skin's going to dry to the nail head. That's going to make it really difficult to get the nails out later on. So take your brush it down, and now you can see it's coming down nice and even all the way around. It's taking the fur and putting the fur where the fur belongs, away from the skin and off of the nails. We're going to take our knife now, and I'm going to cut the edge of the lips here and the nose. We're going to cut it off. The reason why I'm taking it off is, if you remember, we measured from head to tail, then from side to side. That gives you the size of beaver. If you leave this on, if we would have put this and nailed it here, don't think you're going to fool the grader by doing that, because he knows the nose is there. He's going to take this now and he's going to fold it over, and he's going to measure now. The measurement is going to come from the eye to here, your first measurement. So you're going to end up losing money. So make sure that you cut this off. Okay, so now we've got the lip here, so we're going to just cut in at the lip, and we're just going to follow a line across here. We're going to take the lip off, we're going to take the nose off, and we're coming back around to the other side and the lip, and where the whiskers are, and down to the edge here, and that's it. Once you've got this piece off here, that goes away. There's one last thing I'm going to do, and that's my caster. So I'm going to put one nail like this here, and we're going to hang our caster up on it. So now the casters are on, the beaver's on the board, everything is ready to go. We can take the beaver now. Usually I have a hole in my board here, and I take the board and I hang it up. When it's hanging up, it's going to dry. I always hang it up with the head down, so that any oils, over a period of the next 2 or 3 days here, you're going to have to come into your drying shed every day and take a paper towel and wipe down any of the oils that are on it. So clean it up with, you're going to see oils coming out of the skin. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to turn it. So I'm going to put the head up the next day. So one day the head's down, the next day the head's up, and that's because it always dries at the higher part in the shed, in your drying shed. So you're gonna have to rotate it to clean it, to dry it up evenly. And then after it's dried up, then the way you're gonna, after 3-4 days, it'll be nice and dry. You're gonna take your hammer. On the hammer, you can see we got it onto a grinder here, and we made a little notch in the claw. Okay, so what you're going to do with the claw, the hammer, you're going to come in here and just see how that, push it on with your finger, because if I just start doing this here, I could end up ripping the hide. So yeah, push down with my finger, and then I just start pulling these nails out. So using that little hook on the claw, that's how you're going to just keep going all the way around, taking all the nails off. So that's after about, you're going to know how when it's dry. The last places to dry are going to be around the legs usually. I find the back legs are usually some of the last places. The tail is the last place to dry. So when it feels all nice and hard, it's ready to come off, then you can start taking the nails off. I'm just going to put these back in here. And like I said, you can take the beaver now, and I'm going to bring it over here and set it up on the wall. My casters are here. They're going to dry for about a day on here, and then take them out and put them in the freezer. Don't leave them here because the longer you leave the caster here, the more it's going to dry out, and then you're losing weight, so that's not good. So one day on there and then put them away. And that's it. You got your beaver. That's a well-handled beaver, ready. Once it's dry, it'll look really good, and it's a good prime beaver. You're going to get a good dollar for it. So thank you very much for watching this, and last thing I want to say is remember, trapping is part of your heritage, so take a kid trapping.